Hello and welcome to the Gifted Podcast. I am your host, Niraj Mulani, and in the Gifted Podcast, I speak with elite athletes as we try to challenge the misconception that athletes are just some people who are talented or gifted with special abilities at birth. Every week, I am joined by an elite athlete as we try to break down what it truly takes and means to be an athlete. If you're an aspiring athlete or just a casual sports fan, you will definitely enjoy this podcast as I get candid with athletes about their journey, their achievements, moments of heartbreak, and most importantly, moments of hard work and perseverance. In today's episode of the Gifted Podcast, I am joined by a three-time Olympian, former world number one, a world record holder for almost a decade in triple jump, and current World Athletics Council member, Willie Banks. Willie is a true epitome of the phrase a live wire, and I could feel his infectious energy throughout our conversation. In our chat today, I try and understand the reasons behind Willie's success, what made him tick, and we learn how the rhythmic clap, something that's used by every track and field athlete today, was born accidentally with the help of a few drunk audience members in Stockholm. I also take him back to 1985 as we break down his world record breaking jump, a record that had stood for over a decade. I had a fantastic time speaking to Willie, and I hope you enjoy our conversation as much as I did. See you folks on the flip side. Welcome, Willie, to the Gifted Podcast. Today, we are really excited to learn more about your career and how you became the world number one in triple jump.
Well, thank you very much, Niraj. I am really happy to be a part of this. Um, I You'll have to forgive me, but the Gifted Podcast is a very interesting name. How did you come about that?
So, I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that many people think that athletes are just some people who are gifted with special abilities at birth and completely disregard the hard work that goes behind it. And while we understand that they may be gifted in some sense, but talent and gift can only take you so far. So that's how I think I came about with the name.
Well, that's fantastic, and I truly believe that. I don't think that anyone is born. I think you're born with certain talent, but then I think everyone is born with a talent. It's just whether we recognize it or not, and secondly, whether we are willing to train it and understand it and have the right frame of a mind for whatever talent it is. And it doesn't have to be athletics, it doesn't have to be the arts, it doesn't have to be business. There's something inside every human being that's a talent. And I truly believe that.
Absolutely, you said it, man. And we'd be very keen to know your journey in your career, what all things you had to do to, get to the number one spot in the world in your sport of triple jump. So let's start right at the beginning. And I had read various interviews where you shared that you were a really hyperactive kid and your family took you to the doctors and the doctor just said put him in sports. But very keen to understand how you got into triple jump as a sport, considering that there were so many other options for you.
So, yeah, I actually, it took a while before I found the triple jump. And I think that's part of the gift. Uh, you don't always find your gift on the first try, the second or third try. And the same with me. When I was actually in third grade is when they took me to see a psychiatrist, and fortunately, I don't think they had invented this term, where they call it, where children are hyperactive, but they actually he actually just said, listen, the kid is full of energy. You just need to keep him busy and get him in sports. And so that's what my parents did. And we weren't a rich family, but my father was in the military, and in the military, a lot of the resources are free for the civilians, for their family. So I took advantage of everything. I know baseball, basketball, soccer, hockey, you name it. I was doing it, and so finally, I kind of calmed down. And I actually in junior high, when I was, I guess I was about 12 or 13 years old, maybe 12. they introduced me to track and field, which was very interesting because I didn't like to run a lot, but I was hyperactive and I loved to jump. And so they showed me how to high jump. And I loved it because I could run straight at it and jump over, just like a hurdle. And I just loved it. And you land on this pit. It was so much fun. And then one day, the coaches brought a high schooler um, from the local high school to come and talk to us about the high jump. And he was a very good high jumper. And he told his story. And I thought to myself, I want to be like that guy. I want to be that good, And so I asked my parents if I could go watch him do the high jump at the high school. And so they agreed and they took me and they put me, let me go. And I was up there watching. When I got there, they started the high jump and I didn't see where he was. So they started, at a very low height. Then they started going higher and higher. And then they got to about 1 meter 80, about 6 feet. And they said, hey, everybody went out. And I looked around. I said, I can't believe it. I came here and he didn't even jump. But then the judge walked over to this guy with a hoodie over his head. And he was sitting next to this young lady. And the judge was talking to him. And I looked and he took the hoodie off. And there was the guy. I'm like, holy mackerel, look at this guy. I said, why didn't he jump? Well, he walks over with his sweats on. And it was at 180. And he just walks up, takes a few steps, and jumps over like it was nothing, like exercise. And I thought that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. Everybody else is out and you walk up and you just do it. And then the judge asked, well, how high do you want it? And I figured, he'd probably put up another 2 inches or so, maybe 5 centimeters. No. He raised it up 10 centimeters, right? And jumped over it. I was so impressed with that. I said, I'm going to be a high jumper. So I went back and I high jumped for a lot. But the high jump coach wanted me to jump the way he wanted, and I didn't want to jump that way. I wanted to just run and jump over it, and he wanted me to actually do technique. So we had a falling out, and I got kicked off the team. But my parents got me back on the team, and I promised that I would jump the way he wanted to. And that was my freshman year, so I did all right. But then my sophomore year, they put me in other events, the long jump, the hurdles, and etc. And I did really good in the long jump. My third year in high school, they introduced for the first time the triple jump. So I thought, okay, I'd come out and in my basketball shoes because it was basketball season before that, and everybody got a chance to try it, and I tried it, and I was the best one that day. So the coach said, "You'll be a triple jumper from now on." I said, "Okay." So then I was triple jumping. I did okay on the first couple of tries. And then I went to my history class, and the history teacher said, "So what are you doing out in track?" And I said, "Well, I do this and then I do the triple jump. They just started the triple jump." And he said, "Well, maybe I can come out and help you. I can show you how to do it." And I was like, "Listen, I'm the best in the school, so I don't know how you can help me, history teacher, who's probably 50 years old." And he looked at me like, no, seriously, I can probably help. I was the NC2A champion during the wars. And so I would have gone to the Olympic Games, but they canceled the Olympic Games. And I was like, what? Okay, you can come out and you can watch me. So he showed me how to actually do the triple jump, which is 3 long jumps instead of a hop, a skip, and a jump. And so from that day on, I could jump much further than everyone. In fact, I could jump out of the pit. So every school in my district had to dig out and add additional feet, like a meter to the pit so that I didn't get hurt. And that's how I started the triple jump. And I didn't get beat until for 2 years. I won the Tri State meet in California. And then I finally lost in Chicago because the wind was in my face. So I lost once in high school. It was crazy.
And you had some scholarship offers to play basketball as well, and decided against them and went to UCLA to jump. And
jump you did, man. In one of the meets against USC, and this is something that is sort of a folklore in UCLA, where USC was winning by a big margin, and with one jump from you, you turned the meet over its head and helped UCLA snatch the victory. This also saw the first instances of you using the crowd to your advantage. We'd seen the cheerleader shouting, "Come on, Willie." What went down that day, and how important were those early wins to, set you on your success?
So I think this is the first time I realized I had a quote unquote gift. And again, I was just figuring out that it was a gift. And as a freshman going into college, two of the strongest colleges in the United States with multiple Olympic and world champions, I was just like a kid. So leading up to that meet, I was excited because I was going to be in the first, big meet of my life. And there was the night before, I was just thinking, you know what? I could do well in this meet. I'm really, I just got to focus and maybe I'll do really well. And I laid down and I was thinking about it, and I didn't realize what was going on. But about probably an hour of laying there, I came back to reality and I was sweating everywhere. It's like I went through the entire competition in my mind. The whole day, I could smell the grass, feel the heat of the sun. It was real to me. And I got up. I remember I got up, I took a shower, I went to bed, and I felt really good. Instantly, I went to sleep. The next day, I lived right in the dormitories, right up above the track. And I opened the curtains and I looked down at the track, and I just had this feeling of joy and happiness. And I said, I'm going to go dive into that because this is going to be exciting for me today. So I threw my stuff on, I ran down there and I warmed up, and I got ready for the competition. And they started me with the long jump. Now, I'm not a long jumper, but hey, I was willing to compete. And the first jump, I jumped pretty good. The second jump, I won. Not expected to beat the Olympic champion or the NC2A champion and the NC2A runner up. I was expected to come in maybe sixth, and I won. And then the triple jump started a little later on. And like you were saying, the meet was going back and forth. Was the UCLA in the head, the USC in the head, a lead, it go back and forth. And even in the triple jump, one USC would start out and then UCLA would jump further. And, we would go back and forth. And I was probably the third best jumper on the team. USC had great triple jumpers, NC2A champions and whatnot. So I was prepared to jump as best I could. And as you were saying, there was 15,000 people. It was so full of people that the stadium can only handle like 13, 14,000. So people were ringed around the outside. And there were a lot of famous people there because there were a lot of famous graduates, as well as UCLA is located near Hollywood. And so we had famous actors, and it was just really awesome. So the cheerleaders usually don't come to a track meet, but they actually came to this one. And I was like, what? This was the first time I had this experience. And television, they had live television. So the meet was winding down and USC was in the lead. And it was my turn. It was my last attempt. And I had to jump a foot further than I'd ever done in order to go in the lead. So this announcement came over the loudspeaker right before I started. It's like USC is leading the meet. Willie Banks is next in the triple jump. If Willie can jump into the lead, UCLA can win this competition. And I was like, what? How am I, a little freshman, going to win this competition? And I went over to my coach, and he said something that probably was the smartest thing anyone could have said. He said, I said, Coach, what do I do? And he looked at me with a stern face and said, do what you do in practice. And he turned and walked away. And at the time I thought he was stupid. What kind of advice is that, right? But it was brilliant because otherwise I would have been thinking about something else. You need to clear your mind, right?
Yeah.
So I went back and I stood at the top of the runway, and the cheerleaders started and the band started and people were screaming at me. USC was hoping I wouldn't make it. UCLA was hoping I was going to make it. I said a prayer and I just took off. I didn't even concentrate. I just said a prayer and ran. And I took a hop, a skip, a jump, and I landed in what I felt was virgin territory. And I ran back around to look, and the tape just kept coming further and further and further until it got to 55 feet one, about 16 meters, 88. It was a junior record, and we won the meet on that one. And it was just awesome. In fact, I've got it right here. That's it. That was this. This was the news article that came out the day I won.
Awesome. This is almost coming to 1976 when you were just 20 years old and already knocking on the Olympic team's door as well. And in the trials, you came in fourth and narrowly missed out on an Olympic spot. What was your feeling at that time?
Um, I felt like I had let my family down because they were so excited about me going. And my father took a loan out on the house and he bought a camper because it was in Montreal. The whole family was going to jump in the station wagon and the camper and drive to Montreal, which was all the way across on the other side of the continent. And they were so excited. And I remember losing by 2.5 centimeters, 1 inch. And I thought, this is ridiculous. How can I lose? And I called my father and I said, Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't jump far enough. A guy jumped an inch further than me, so I came in fourth. I'm an alternate, but doesn't look like I'm going. And my father said, well, son, I know you did the best you could, and I'm proud of you. See ya. We're off to the Olympics. So my father and my family, everybody went to Montreal. Friends, I stayed at home and watched it on television. So that was my feeling. I couldn't go. I knew that I had to go to the Olympic Games. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to wait till 1980, and then I'm going to make the team, and I'm going to win. That's how I felt. I'm going to win that gold medal in 1980.
And after that, leading up to the 1980 Olympics, you were ranked second in the world at that time. And then to learn the fact that your country is boycotting the games, what was going through your mind at that time? And what was your opinion of the boycott, especially knowing that you were at the top of your game and had a great shot at medaling?
So I don't think it was so much that I was going to lose something. I mean, I knew that, if we didn't go, I wouldn't be able to win that medal, and that was important. But more importantly, I just thought it was an abuse of authority and abuse of power. And the way we're brought up in the United States, we're brought up as a free people, able to be an individual and do as we want. But we were threatened by the government. And I didn't appreciate that at all. They said, well, you try and go, we'll take your passport away, or, stuff like that. And that was just, to me, it was a wake-up call for me, is if I don't involve myself in the politics of sport, forever I will be marginalized and used as a puppet. So I got more and more involved. So I was angry, I was upset, and I was disillusioned because of that.
And was there ever an option in those times to actually compete under the Olympic flag?
No, not that anyone had said, because so many countries would then have to compete under the Olympic flag, because so many countries agreed with the United States under the pressure of the United States to not go. I feel sorry for them more than I feel sorry for the people in the United States.
Right. And shortly after the boycotted Olympics, you became world number one and were participating in a lot of meets in Europe. But it was becoming increasingly difficult for you to find meets that had triple jump. And the world number one in triple jump was being asked to actually do long jumps. Some of the meet managers, in fact, told you as well that triple jumps don't sell tickets. But before you flew to Switzerland to do the long jumps, something incredible happened in your triple jump at Stockholm. Not just triple jump, in fact, but a lot of other track and field competitions forever. Could you share how the rhythmic clap was born?
So you've done your homework and you're absolutely correct. And I thought, I had jumped uh 1757 or something like that, about 58, 50, what, 56. Anyway, I jumped my an American record, and I thought, here's my time now. It's my time to win. And I went over to Europe to jump in 1981, and I felt really good about my prospects. But when we got to Stockholm, my very first meet, where all the meet promoters, meet organizers were, my manager went in to talk to them about where I could get a competition. He came out and he said, "I have good news and bad news." I said, "Well, tell me the good news." And no, tell me the bad news first. And he said, "Well, there's no triple jump after this in Europe." And I said, "What's the good news?" He said, "Well, I got you a long jump in Lausanne, Switzerland." I go, "Oh my God." So I was so upset. There was this one room where all the meet organizers were. Athletes weren't really allowed in there, but I was so mad. I was barged in and went up to the guy with the most meets and I said, "I hear you're not having any triple jumps this year. I don't get it. What's going on?" And he looked sternly at me and he said, "Listen here, you. I How am I supposed to have you at a competition when nobody's coming to the competition to see you? If you're not putting butts in the seats, I'm not getting paid. And if I'm not getting paid, I sure as heck not going to pay you. So get the hell out of here." And that light bulb went off in my head. This is not fun. This is a business for these people. What am I thinking? I'm an idiot. People are business people. So I went to my room and I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to show them. I'm going to show them how exciting the triple jump is. So I went to the stadium and there was nobody there and I started warming up. And as I warmed up, I was listening to this music over and over again, not just Knee Deep by Parliament Funkadelic. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to win this competition and I'm going to show them how exciting it is. I'll break a record, some kind of record I'm going to break. And then as people came into the stands and as everything started going and the triple jump started, they bring you all the triple jumpers together to talk about the rules before they set us off. That's just the way it works. So once the judge had given us the rules, I stopped everyone. I said, "Listen, guys, we have to do something exciting. We have to break records. We have to get PRs, season best, something to show them just how exciting the triple jump could be." Well, everybody just kind of walked away. Maybe they didn't understand my English. I don't know what it was, but they acted as if, I was crazy. So I thought, well, this is going to be on me. Well, the first 8 guys fouled. It was so boring. I thought I was going to kill myself. And then when it was my turn, I had my headphones on. I stood at the top of the runway, started taking off my clothes and my headphones. And I got down to my sweatpants and I started to pull my sweatpants down. And 5 drunk guys off to the right across on the other side of the track, they whistle like that, like, whoa. And I was some weirdos. And I looked over and I was kind of like, that is rude, but oh well, get into my focus. So my focus is clap 3 times, shake my fist 3 times, and then go. So I clapped 3 times, and they clapped 3 times, these 5 drunk guys. And I was about to get upset, but I said, no, I got to focus. I clapped 3 times, they clapped 3 times, I shook my fist, and I took off. And I jumped about 1670 or something. Wasn't great. But I came back, and they were like clapping, and I was like, okay, thank you. So the next time I came up, I took my sweats off my headphones and they started clapping. The 5 guys and people around them started clapping. So I, clapped 3 times, shook my fist and ran down. And I jumped 55-1, I think. And that was the Swedish record. I didn't even know. So they announced that. And I came back and then the next time I got everybody on the whole side of the stadium then I was started clapping, rhythmically clapping like this. And I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. So I just put my fist up and I was pumping it to the claps. And I ran down and jumped further than the 55-4 or something like that. And so then that was the third jump. Then, when after three jumps, they get rid of all the guys who don't qualify. So I guess 9 guys were left, 8 or 9 guys were left. And I thought this is getting exciting. So I jumped again. Then I asked the meet organizer to put a flag near the Swedish record, the European record, and the world record. And he said, okay. So he did that. And then it was my turn. I thought, you know what? I'm going to break the world record on this jump. So I stood at the top of the runway. 3/4 of the stands were clapping. 3/4. And I just ran, jump, hop, skip, and jump. And I landed right at the world record. And I put my arms up like, world record. Now I knew I had fouled, right? I knew it, but whatever. So I was jumping around, world record, and everybody was getting excited. And then the red flag went up and the guy was shaking. His hand was shaking like crazy. And I was like, there's no way, knowing that I had, but I figured, whatever. I ran over, got on my hands and knees and looked at it, and you could see how big I had made a mark in the plasticine. I looked up at the guy and I said, okay, you caught me. And I walked and I waved and I smiled. And so everybody stopped, jeering and whistling, which is a way of jeering. And, started clapping and laughing with me. So I ran back and put my sweats on. Now, in Europe, when they run the long distance or anything on the track, after they finish, they take a lap. It's a victory lap, right? When a field eventer wins, they just walk you off and kick you off the track, right? I mean, there's no real ceremony. It's like unceremoniously they get off the track. So I figured, you know what? Before they kick me off the track, I'm going to take a victory lap, even though I have one more jump. So I put my headphones on. I started jogging around the track, inside of the track. And every section that I came for, they would clap, stand up, and sit down. That was the first wave in triple jump. So I was like, wow, that was awesome. And I came back. It was my final chance. I took my sweats off and I stood at the top of the runway. And everybody stood up. And then they watched me. And I went, and everybody started clapping. You get this, and I started my fist pumping to the beat of the clapping. It was just crazy. And I ran down and I took a hop, a skip, a jump. I came almost to the world record. And it was, of course, a Swedish record. It was a European record. It was a great jump. It was like 17:56 or 57. And everybody was excited. It was crazy town. So people came out of the stands. They put me on their shoulders. They're walking me around. They gave me a microphone. Big mistake, because as you can tell, I can talk. And so I went off for a little bit. And then afterwards, after everything had settled down, there's this one area where they had all the meet promoters. And I walked over there and I said, so guys, what do you think about that? And they go, great performance. Can you come to my meet? So I had a few more meets after that. But you'll remember I had a long jump that I had to go to. And I thought, okay, I had my 15 minutes of fame. That's the typical, everybody says, you'll at some point in your life, you'll have 15 minutes of fame. Well, that was mine. That's what I thought. So I went down to Lausanne, Switzerland, and I was jumping and I felt terrible. It's cold, and I just didn't feel like jumping. I'm not a long jumper.
Yeah.
So my best was 7 meters, maybe 88 or something crazy like that. And so after about my fourth jump, someone in the crowd said, well, come on, Willie. And I turned put my hands up beside my head, like, what do you want from me? And all of a sudden they thought I was going to clap. So they started clapping. And I was like, where did they learn that from? They must have seen it on television. So I ran and I took a big long jump and I landed 8 meters 11, which was a Swiss record. I didn't know. Turned out it was the Swiss All-Comers record. It was like the sixth best in the world that year. And I'm not even a long jumper. So from that time on, I realized I had something. It wasn't my personal gift, but it was something that was given to me by the public. So everywhere I went, I was always the hometown favorite. And it crushed my opponents because their people were rooting for me, you know? So it was a great experience and I used it everywhere. And then people started copying me. And believe it or not, when it first happened, people were angry at me. They hated me because they thought I was being a showman. And yes, I was. I had to be. That's the only way they were going to get competition. So I had to take the brunt of the hatred from the other triple jumpers. But at the time, I didn't really care. I was just happy we were jumping.
We see this now being used by all athletes, and it's almost something that every athlete uses on track and field, trying to rely on the energy of the crowd to drive them through that performance, giving them an extra push.
Yeah, people don't know that the clapping of the audience or the encouragement of the audience is incredible for an athlete. It gives you like an extra added push. They always say in basketball, it's the sixth man in basketball, or it's the 12th man in American football or in soccer. So the crowd makes a big difference. And we can see that even now during this COVID when athletes don't get to have an audience and the play is down, people get more injured. It's not as exciting. Fortunately, they play these tape recordings of the audience, but it's not the same. It's I was very, very fortunate. I always say I was I was given many things, and one of those things was a gift from God to have the audience supporting me everywhere I went.
Then, leading up to the 1984 Olympics, you were on the home ground in LA, and you'd won a silver medal in 1983 World Championships and were world number two again going into the Olympics. What ambitions were you setting for yourself going into LA?
I thought for sure I was a gold medalist, right? that was clear to me. But then I got injured. I hurt my knee, and there was no coming back from that. And finished sixth, so I was very depressed. Fortunately, I got a chance to be a commentator at the track, so I got to see the whole thing. But I was very depressed and very upset about what had happened, and I swore that I would do something special because I love jumping. And so I regathered myself and I said, I don't know if I can make it to 1988, but I'm going to do something. And I felt something hit me in the back of the head, and it was like I closed my eyes and I could feel my God saying, "You know what? You can do something. You can break a record. Why not? That's something you can do." So I was like, "Yeah." So that made me feel better. I can go and break a record. Yeah, world record. How about that? So I started training. I trained with a whole new group, and I was getting in such good shape. And in 1985, a year later, at the national championships, I was jumping with some of the greatest athletes of all times, right? And on my first jump, I fouled a big foul. And I was like, wow, that felt great. So I put my headphones on and I was kind of dancing around. And then it hit me again. The voice, it said, watch. And I watched myself do the triple jump and I go, oh my goodness, this is it. I'm going to be a world record holder. And I told my friend, he's a high jumper. I said, hey man, I'm gonna break the world record on the next jump. You gotta watch. A couple other friends, I said the same thing to. And they thought I was crazy. But I just knew I was gonna break the world record because I saw it. So when it was my turn, I just ran down. I took a hop, a skip, a jump. I landed right next to the world record flag, and yes, right. I knew I was gonna do it. And I told everybody, and it just felt so good. So that kind of made me feel better that I didn't win in 1984. So from then on, I was a world record holder for 10 years, and it was a wonderful time for me.
Yeah, and like you said, you told people beforehand that you're gonna break the record. It's almost like divine intervention.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the jump in itself, you did not break the record by a centimeter or two. You broke it by 8 centimeters, and a world record that had stood for 10 years.
It was pretty exciting, and I think, like you said, divine intervention. I was blessed so many times, not only in sport but in life itself, and that was just one of the blessings that I've got, and that's why I think it's important for me to pay it back, and I do as much as I can to try and help my sport, other athletes, kids, whatever it is. I try and do to help, because the blessings I have shouldn't be left just for me, right? They should be spread amongst the world.
Yep. And that successful year actually saw you win the coveted Jesse Owens Most Outstanding Male Athlete of the Year award.
Yes.
How big a deal was it to win that award, knowing that Jesse Owens is arguably the best track and field athlete that ever was?
Yeah, he was a great hero of mine, and to be named the Jesse Owens Award winner was extremely special to me, and I felt so proud, and I was so proud that I could have my parents there to be a part of it, and to enjoy it with me, my family and friends. So yeah, it means a lot. But the thing about awards for me is it's a gift, but it's one that is a memory, right? So it's a memory, and it's what gives me strength, but it's just that, it's just one of those things. It's kind of like, how do I say? It's like the stones that you would put into a pouch, and you carry that as protection if you're walking through an area that is maybe wild, so you can scare away a coyote or a bobcat or something, right? You just put the stone. So that's what that is. It doesn't define me. That's the one thing. It doesn't define me. I appreciate them, but those gifts, they could go to anyone. I was lucky, and I was appreciative.
And you have actually spent most of your 18-year-long career ranked being top 10 in the world. And you were always the most flamboyant athlete on the track, listening to songs on your headphones before the jumps, always having an infectious energy around you. And I've seen the videos as well. We often hear athletes say that they're just trying to have fun when they are competing. And I think you epitomize that. But we often understand that this is a difficult zone to get into. And what are the mechanics to get into the zone, if we may call it that?
So what people don't understand, and what you expressed in the very beginning of this podcast, is that we're gifted in a way, but that gift, right, is something that we have to make. But I think the important thing is that I as a gift, you don't sweat it, right? It's special to you, and so you should enjoy it. When you get a gift, like for the New Year's, or for what we have, Christmas or something like that, right? You don't go, "Oh god, it's a gift," and be upset and you want to go. You go, "Yay!" Right? You yes, I got something. That's great. And so for me, I didn't sweat it because it's a game. I'm not going to die from it. And I was in front of people, and I could entertain them, and I could have fun, right? Sometimes it may be painful, but it didn't matter because the crowd kept me from feeling it. And then what other people didn't understand is that I went through every competition in my head the night before, so I knew what I was going to do the next day. And so if you wait until you're in the competition to do it, you're too late.
Yep.
You got to know what you're doing before you do it. And so every time I went to the track, I already knew what was going to happen. And so it was just a matter of letting myself do it. And the only way to do that is to release the anger, release the pain, release everything, and just go clear. and let your body do what it did last night. And if you do that, you're never going to have a problem. And so that's my gift. If I have a gift, it's the ability to see what I'm going to do and then release it, let it go.
And like you mentioned, I think a lot of it obviously comes down to the fact that you were one of the early athletes that were tapping into the usage of visualization and being able to see what you are going to perform and then just letting your body do what is being visualized.
Exactly. And it took a long time to understand it. But then once I understood it, holy mackerel, it opened up so many things. If you look back at my history, I was in law school from 1980 to 1983. Very difficult law school. And during that time, the clap started. I won a silver medal, all these things, right? During that time. So people say, how do you do that? Well, it's because I used the focus that I use in track and field for studying, right?
Yeah.
So whereas some people will sit down and they'll look around and they'll look at their watch, and then I would get into that focus and I'd be in that focus for hours. 3 hours was probably my max, but I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything else but the papers and the books in front of me. That was it. You couldn't stop me. And even if you said my name, I would not come out of that trance because I was that focused. And if you can do that, you can do more because things don't get in your way, right?
Yeah.
So you just grill through it. And that's, I think, one of the talents I took from sports into my education and into my business experience.
Yeah. And it's almost Zen like state of being where you are ultra focused and really concentrating on only one task and not any other distractions.
You exactly. And it took a while to understand that because a lot of times, you don't understand what you're doing. You do something and you don't know what it is. And then later on you go, "Oh, that's what I was doing. I was meditating, or I was focusing, or I was I was visualizing what I was doing." So all of those terms came later. I was just doing what Willie Banks did, right? I was just doing. And so as I got more involved and studied what I was doing, the more I understood it and the more I could use it more professionally. So now I kind of try and teach people how to do it. And one of the things that I teach is your ability to train properly.
Yeah.
So one of the games I play with people is I drop things in front of them and try and have them catch it. Now you have to sit a certain way and you have to have your hands in a certain location. But I drop things and let them catch it. And most people think, oh, the first thing they do is they tense up
Yes.
because they think I got to do something. And then they look at it really hard. And what they don't understand is that what you see is a split second slower than what you recognize, right?
Yeah.
So you drop it, they miss it, and they drop it, and they miss it, and then what I do is I stop them from focusing on the pen or the straw or whatever I'm dropping. I said, look in my eyes, or look over there and read what it says on that sign. And then once they start reading, I drop it, and they catch it automatically without even trying. They don't even they look at their hand and they go, "How did that happen?" What I did is I trained them to do something, and then I took their mind away. And if you take your mind out of the way of your muscles, you can do it perfectly, right?
Right.
Because you don't when you started driving the first time, you overcompensate because you don't know. But once you got it, then you can talk on the phone and drink drinks and change the radio. You can do all kinds of stuff. Close your eyes, for a few seconds, because your brain, you let your brain float over here and let your well, okay. your consciousness versus your subconscious, right? So your subconscious, once it takes over, it's going to do it perfectly. You don't have to worry about it. It's your consciousness that gets in the way of doing something correct. So anyway, that's probably a better way of explaining. And that goes back to what my coach did when I was a freshman at UCLA. Instead of telling me, well, you need to, get your hips out, something like that, and I would have focused on that. And he just said, do what you do in practice, which took my brain out of it, right? I was like, what the hell is that? So it took me back there. And so I realize now that if I take my brain out of the way, my consciousness, I guess, out of the way, and let my subconscious handle what I need to do, it'll be done. Just don't worry about it. So I think everybody can do that. That's not a true gift because everybody has that gift, right? The gift is that I recognize I have it and I trained it.
Yeah, and I read exactly that in the book called Inner Game of Tennis, where they're talking about multiple instructions from the mind to your body, whereas the body anyway knows what it needs to do to actually get the output.
Exactly. It's just like they say, whenever you're going to get hit, you don't tense up, you relax. Right? If you want to go faster, you don't tense up, you relax. It's always a matter of relaxing. It's always a matter of letting go. Because if you're going to get hit, you're going to get hit. But if you relax, your muscles won't tense and then they won't rip. Okay? They'll go with the flow. So, that's why football players can get hit and they're like, okay, get right back up because they don't, they're used to getting hit. They know what to do. And so I think I think it's important to understand, just like you said, it's counterintuitive, but a lot of things are counterintuitive. You just have to trust. And that's what took me the longest time is trusting that I could do it. Here's a trick. I don't know if it works for everybody, but most people it will. Put something in your right hand and throw it to your left. You're going to catch it, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty easy. It's pretty easy. But then have somebody throw something to you and it's not the same, right?
Yeah.
It's because you're right and you're left. You don't have to think about it. You have to think if someone's throwing it. You don't even have to look. I do this a lot. I don't even look. I'll just take something and just, throw it back and forth like that and just catch it and go, oh, okay. And that's the way it works, generally speaking.
So coming back to the Olympics, and this is 1988 Seoul Olympics now.
Mm-hmm.
You came in sixth in this Olympics, and I also wanted to understand what sort of goals you had set for yourself in this Olympics, and how were you looking at your own performance and rating your success overall at the Olympics?
So I may have had a gift, but then I also had a weakness. Okay. My weakness was whenever it got to something really important, I probably overdid it. I usually could do things, my brain could do things that my body couldn't, my how do they say it? My brain could write a check that my body could pay for, right? So generally speaking, what happened in 1988 was I actually jumped further than anybody had ever jumped in the world. I jumped 18 meters 20, and that was past my world record by 23 centimeters. And it was a wonderful I did it a couple of times in the trial, but they were both wind dated, or several of them were wind dated.
Yeah.
And so I thought, wow, still, I thought that was the greatest. I felt good. And I thought, oh, I'm going to win a gold medal easy if I can jump like that. But I woke up the next day and I couldn't walk. Both of my Achilles tendons had been stretched, I guess, so far. Didn't snap. They just got stretched so far that I couldn't walk. And so for the next month or two, all I did was try to get my legs back. And we did everything we could short of surgery, but it didn't work. I couldn't run. I couldn't train. I couldn't do anything. I could barely walk. So I went and I was able to just barely get through to the finals, and I jumped far enough to get sixth place. But these things happen. And then for the next 4 years, I went through surgeries and everything, and I just couldn't do it. So I had to quit in '92.
Yeah. And 1996 was actually a home Olympic again in Atlanta. You were the director of athlete services, and they called you the director of fun, and you're very popular with all the athletes. How did that nickname come about?
So the director of athlete services is the person who handles all of the facilities for the athletes in the athletes village. And so when I took the job, I thought, what is it that I would like to have in the village when I was in the village? And so I thought, okay, well, we're going to have a movie premiere with some of the most famous athletes. We're going to have a game room that's, like got all kinds of games in it. I put a laser tag in the village. I had pools. I had, stores and, bands and just all kinds of stuff going on. Just if you were at my village, you could have so much fun. It was going to be crazy town, right? And so people just started saying, well, he's the director of fun because that's all he thinks about is how much fun this is going to be, right? So that's how it came about, just because of all the fun things that I was trying to put in the village for the athletes.
And since retiring, you have always been driven by an urge to give back to the sport, raise its profile so that athletes these days don't face the difficulties that you did, especially trying to find the triple jumps or any other discipline that they are competing in. And this has seen you take up positions as the director of the US Olympic Committee and then be a board member with USA Track and Field. I read that you had very interesting suggestions of wanting to differentiate between the governing body and the marketing function of the sport so that the sports profile could be raised and the athlete's profile could be raised. What happened with that, and what other policies do you think need a little bit of shake up to actually raise the profile?
You're very right. You've done a lot of good research, and I have always felt, and this came from 1981 when this meat promoter said, "You aren't putting butts in the seats, so why am I?" And again, that came to me as if, "Oh my gosh, this is a business, right?" The problem is that the people who govern our sport want to maintain control. Okay, who wants to let go of control when you have it, right? Who wants to not get paid? Hey, take my job away, right?
Yeah.
So I'm always faced with the problem of trying to explain to people that if we want our sport to be professional, we have to let it go and we have to support promoters. And our job as a governing body is to govern the development of the sport, not to try and make it a professional sport. It's ridiculous because number one, you have to be fair, right? You can't you can't put athletes ahead of something else. Oh well, we've got juniors. Oh well, we've got masters. Oh well, we've got officials. Oh well, we've got associations. All of these things have to kind of be fair. So I always ask people, especially here in the United States, I say, name one governing body that is making money in their sport, right?
Yeah.
And they go, and I say, so what's the national governing body for basketball? And they go, the NBA. No. They are not a national governing body. So what's the national governing body for American football? NFL. No. Right? There is and then, okay, what about soccer? MSL or MLS. I go, no. Those are marketing companies. They are leagues. They are professional organizations. Their main job is to make money. It's not to grow the sport. That's a secondary thing, but their main job is to make money. People don't want to hear that. Not in an amateur sport because that takes their money away, right? If you're getting paid to run a sport, why would you want to allow someone to take that money away, right? No, you're not going to do that. So I run into that problem a lot. But it doesn't deter me from being an advocate of it because I know it's the only way. If you want your sport to be to be a moneymaker, like tennis, like golf, like American football, like soccer, any of those things. You have to help the promoter to promote the sport, and then you can make it. And it's logical. Look at what happened in the 1970s. Long distance running was starting to come on, and they wanted to join or they were part of our organization in track and field. They were part of track and field. So road running was like coming on, and they were like, hey, can we? And they're like, you know what? You're second fiddle to track and field. We're track and field, but you can play with us. But you're second. Remember, you're always second. So one group said, no, we're not going to deal with that. We're going off and we're going to do our own thing. They said, okay, go. Now, in 1980, they had this running boom, right? And money, big money. They weren't a governing body. They were promoters that wanted to make money. Boom, it took off. And now track and field is going, well, why don't you guys come back? Why would we want to come back? That's dumb. To get, to have somebody tell us what to do who didn't know in the first place what they should have done, they should have helped us. So for me, I think it should be two separate things. One is the promo, the other is development, governance. And then the promoters and the athletes, the elite athletes and the TV, and they package it and they make it something to watch. Entertainment.
Yeah.
It's a difference. Sport is entertainment. Competition is athletics, is running, is jumping, is throwing, it's golf. It's that anybody can do it, right? You and I can go out and we can compete together. That's not entertaining, So we go over here, we listen to the governing body, and we just do our thing because we love doing it. But if you want to make money, you got to go on the other side over there, where they will tell you whether you're good or whether you suck. And if you suck, go back over on the other side. But if you're good, come over here and we're all going to make money. And that's the way it should happen. I mean, that's the only way it's going to happen. Now, it doesn't necessarily happen in other countries, though, because sport is governed by the government, right? So that kind of gives it a little bit more of a problem, because then the sport relies on the government to make it work, and it can't. It's just like having a governing body. So you got the government, then a governing body, and then you're still trying to make it professional. It's not going to work, right? You got to let it go. And that's why, however, in let's say a sport that's similar to us, where individuals are doing it, golf and tennis, how did they make it? Because they took it away, and the athletes actually took it and said, we're going to do our own thing. You guys can govern. You can tell us no all you want, but hey, we're making money over here, right? So even the governments couldn't control, because the athletes would just go, okay, well, I'm changing my citizenship. All of a sudden, I'm an American now, right? And you're like, what? Why? Well, because my government was keeping me from being a professional, right? Now, government should be able to do that in a sense, because the government provides them the training, the helpful to get to where they are, and then all of a sudden they're going over to become an American. How wrong is that, right? Unless you pay the government back and then you leave, right? Okay. But I just think that it has to be separate, two separate entities, or it just stays, don't complain if it just stays the way it is, right?
Yeah. I agree. And I think with trying to make more money within the sport, you're not only raising the profile of the sport, but also raising profile of the athlete, which means more money is being driven to them. And they are actually able to put in more hours training rather than taking on a side gig, and being able to perform at a higher level and entertaining the fans even more.
You've got it 100%. That's the way it works, right? You can't, no one, parents will go out and watch their kid, right? But parents will take their kids and go watch a professional athlete. That's where the money is. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, because look, Here's the other thing, okay? So that's one piece of it. Now I'm going to tell you the other piece that really makes it special. Even though you support a promoter who's doing this thing for money, right? What we don't understand is we keep thinking it is sport, right? Sport. So we go out. You like, which sport do you like the best? What's your favorite sport? Huh?
Soccer.
Okay. So you go and you'll watch a soccer match, right? Even if it's just your local school, versus school or something like that, right? But me, I'm not going to spend my money to go to a local, city versus city soccer match. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. All right. Unless there's something to see, right? Now, so for instance, you have to decide what you're going to do with your money. You're either going to spend it on a sports thing, spend it on going to the movies, spend it on going to the club, spend it on going to groceries, get grocery, but basically, if you have disposable income, you have to decide what to do with it.
Yeah.
People in sport think that people are going to spend their money on the sport. And I'm like, why would they do that? Why would they go and watch a sport when they could go over here and listen to, I don't know, name a great famous artist, a famous music artist, right? Who wants to go sit down in the hot heat and watch that when I can sit in a weather controlled dome and listen to a famous artist?
Yeah.
Even me, a track athlete, I'm not going to go see a track meet if I can go, spend my money on something else that is more exciting to me, music. So we have to know that we're competing against not just sport, we're competing against all these other things because people have only so much disposable income and they have to decide. So if you continually do the same thing and people aren't going, then who's the fool there? You have to understand you're competing. And that's exactly what the meet promoter told me. He said, who wants to come and watch you jump? You are the best in the world. And nobody wants to watch you jump. Why? It must not be interesting. That's why. So this made it kind of interesting. So people who ordinarily would not come to watch the triple jump would come. And people who ordinarily would want to go somewhere else and spend their money somewhere else said, that dude is weird. I got to see that. So they're going to come watch because it's strange. It's different. It's unique. It's unusual, right? So what our problem is, we keep thinking that if we do something normal, people are going to come and watch it. That's dumb. Who does that? Who goes to watch normal and spend money on it? I might as well spend my money watching you sleep, right? Spend my money watching you walk back and forth in the park. No, I'm not doing that. I want to see something that interests me, something that's unique or strange or exciting, right? So we have to create that atmosphere or else we're out. We're entertainers. We're not athletes. We're entertainers.
Your interest in policies also ended up seeing you take up position with the World Athletics. What were your aspirations once you got selected, and what sort of changes were you planning on presenting to the committee there?
So my whole gig was exactly what I just got finished telling you. I wanted them to understand that we can't be the same. We have to change. My energy wanted to be towards, or my energy is towards making this sport better, more professional, more entertaining, more international.
Yeah.
Gaining a professionalism above and beyond what we are today, rivaling the leagues of soccer, right? How can we do that? That would be my goal. I'm always happy to help, the development of the sport. But I know, and if we're ever going to make enough money to keep this sport going, we have to change. We have to be more innovative. We have to be more creative. We have to have people understand that this is entertainment. It's not just, I'm telling him what to do. No, 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 no. Let that person do, and you help them become famous. That's what you got to do, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully, I'll have enough energy to convince people, but I first have to understand it to change it, right? So I'm in that understanding phase right now.
And how would you say the postponement of the Tokyo Olympics would have affected your work with World Athletics? And also, how actually World Athletics is supporting athletes throughout this postponement during the pandemic?
I think World Athletics has done a very good job of trying to get money out to those athletes who need it. I think that it's very important to understand that World Athletics has only so much money that they can distribute. And the savings that World Athletics is making, they're passing it on to the athletes as best they can, which is good, I think. I think the pandemic has really put a lot of stress on World Athletics to try and do something, because our sport is a sport that naturally needs to be together. You have to be in person. Not all sports have to be in person, just like because they're on TV. They still have soccer on TV, they still have basketball, they have American football on TV, even if people aren't there. Track and field, long distance running, those things is a group thing. It's a group thing that we're doing. So it's making it very difficult. But I trust in what Seb Coe is doing. I believe his plan is solid. I believe he understands that it is entertainment, and I believe he understands that we need to move forward. It's hard because we're changing people's mindset, not their mind, their mindset, the way they envision what our sport should be. And the easiest way to change somebody's mind is to get in front of them. But it's hard now, right? It's hard. It's harder to get in front of somebody. It's harder to take somebody out to dinner and say, hey, I really want to tell you what I think. I want to hear what you think, and I want to tell you what I think. If you could do that, it's easier than, even over the phone to talk to somebody. So, Zoom has been very good. Some of the others have been very good, but nothing is as powerful as greeting somebody with a strong handshake and a big hug and saying, hey, my friend, let's sit down and talk about this.
Yeah. And what would you say the future holds for Willie? Maybe a coaching role, see you back at the track sometime, maybe?
Yeah, until I pass, I hope that I'm able to jump. I'm doing a lot of high jumping now because my right knee is still giving me trouble with the triple jump, but high jump is a gas. I'm right back to where I started, right? That's where I started as a high jumper. So I'm doing that. I still think I can jump about one. I hope right at this point I could probably jump 175. I could probably get 180 if I was really lucky. And I'm 64 years old.
And I think you're still breaking records with every jump that you take in your age groups.
It's what I'm trying. The problem is the guys behind me, they keep breaking those records.
Right. Well, it's been a real pleasure having you today, Willie, and learning your journey to the Olympics and beyond, and also the fact that we understand that one may be gifted like you are, but it's the perseverance, the hard work that goes behind it that is obviously going to help them get the success that they do. So thank you so much for taking out the time today and sharing your journey with us.
It's been my pleasure, and I thank you for what you're trying to do with your podcast. And I hope that people will listen and understand that, through everyone's journey, they're all going to have those gifts. It's those who recognize them as gifts that are going to be the most successful. So thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you,
All
Willie.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed my conversation with Willie. I'd like to thank Willie once again for taking out the time to share his journey with us. I was particularly moved by how he was able to draw energy from the crowd and get himself into a zone to perform to his best of abilities, which is what allowed him to predict right before the jump that he was going to break the world record in the next jump. And I wish him the best for the work that he is going to do with World Athletics. He has terrific ideas in store to raise the profile of the sport as well as for the athletes, and I'm pretty sure he'll be able to deliver on them. Thank you for tuning into the Gifted Podcast. I have been your host, Niraj Mulani. A gentle reminder, you can find us as The Gifted on your favorite podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, and Google. Keep following us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube as The Gifted Podcast and on Twitter as The Gifted Pod so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. Thank you once again for listening, and I'll see you next week with another special episode. Until then, stay well and keep your masks on.